Welcome back, everybody. I'm Lisa with Lisa Cape and Quilts, and this is video number 6 in our pin cushion series. Today we're going to be making this super cute cubed pin cushion caddy. There's all different kinds of ways you can customize these. Isn't this adorable? And it looks a little complicated, but I'm going to try to make it really simple for you today. So for this cubed pin cushion, I'm going to be using some charm packs. Charm packs are 5 inches by 5 inches, pre-cut squares for you, all ready, matched up. The fabrics are already coordinated for you. I'm going to go through and pick out some fabrics, okay? Now you can customize your cubed pin cushion any size you like. So this one might be a little bit big for you. You can make your squares smaller if you're cutting from yardage or scraps. So let's pick out 6 fabrics that go together, 4 that make up the sides, and 2, one for the top and the bottom. If you want to add some pockets, pick out 2 more squares. You could actually add pockets all the way around if you wanted to. Today we're going to keep it simple and just add 2 pockets. So here I am at the pressing board. I'm going to take the 2 5-inch by 5-inch squares that I want to use as my pocket. I'm going to fold them right in half and just give them a press. Nice and flat, just like this. Your pocket should fit on the raw edges of the squares that you want to add pockets to. Now, if you want, you can add a little interfacing. This is a very lightweight cutaway interfacing. It does not tear when you try to rip it. I've cut out 2 pieces that are 2.5 inches wide and fit right inside that pocket, just like you see here. So let me show you. It just adds a little bit of stability to your pocket. Here's the difference with and without interfacing. You could do it either way. Now, because I'm a glue baster, I'm going to go ahead and glue baste my interfacing in place. I'm just adding a few little tiny specks of glue right in there instead of using pins. And then I'm going to add some dots of glue around the sides and at the bottom. I'm going to line up the raw edges to my side fabric and just dry that glue with my iron. See, our little pocket is taking shape. Now I'll just repeat the process with the second side that I want to add a pocket to. Repeat these steps to however many sides you want to add pockets to. Today I'm just going to add 2. Coming back over to the work table, we're going to rearrange our pieces just like this. Put them in the order that you want to sew them. We'll be joining the sides first with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Coming over to the sewing machine, we're going to grab the first 2 pieces of fabric. One has a pocket, one does not. We're going to line up those raw edges. And we're going to sew our first seam, again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance from one edge all the way to the other. We're going to add our third piece. This one does have a pocket. We'll open that back up and bring in our last piece for the sides, the 4th piece. So here are all four sides sewn together. We're going to match up the raw edges on the first and the last piece, put those pretty sides together, and sew this last seam edge to edge. Once you have all four seams done for the sides of your pincushion, it's going to look a little like this. It's going to be a little awkward. We're going to bring in the fabric for the top, the piece that you want on the top of your pincushion. Now this part is going to be a little awkward. It's going to feel a little awkward, okay? And I totally get it, but you can do it. We're going to take this top piece of fabric. We're going to put it inside of our pincushion, okay? And make sure you have pretty sides facing one another, just like this. You're going to line up the edges of your 5-inch square, just like this. Now you can throw some pins in there if you need to. I'm just going to hold it with my fingers. Make sure those edges of your square are nice and lined up. We're going to bring this back over to the sewing machine. If you find it helpful, you might want to measure over 1/4 inch and make yourself a little mark. I haven't done that, but you might find it helpful. We're going to bring this pincushion right over. You'll feel that little seam right in there. Start not directly at the edge of the fabric, but 1/4 inch in. Sorry, I know my thumb is in the way. You're going to take a couple of stitches and then do a couple of back stitches to lock that into place. And then you're going to sew right along the edge with your 1/4 inch until you get to the next seam, which is 1/4 inch away from the edge. Once you get there, take a couple of back stitches and lock that into place. Once again, you might want to bring over your top piece of fabric and just mark your 1/4 inch, because see, one of mine, I didn't actually start at the 1/4 inch. Once you have your top piece of fabric in, the first seam, I like to bring over the raw edge directly across the way, just like that, and sew this next seam. Again, you're going to line up the edges of your square, just like this, and bring this over to the sewing machine. It all feels very cumbersome and awkward. Starting 1/4 inch away from the edge, again, I'm sewing that seam, making sure to take some back stitches at the beginning and at the end. So we have our first 2 seams done. We'll do the third one, matching up those edges, stuffing it underneath of the foot of our sewing machine. And trust me, the edges, the little corners feel like they're going to do this little puckering. But in the end, you don't really see that. If you've gone too far with your stitches, you might want to take a pair of scissors, just like I'm doing here, and snip a stitch or two so that these seams lay nice and flat. We're sewing the 4th side now. And now the top of our pincushion is sewn into place. Now we're going to repeat the process with the bottom of our pincushion. Okay? So now we're sewing in the bottom. I'm going to start on one of the sides that has a pocket. Again, we're just lining up that raw edge and the corners of our 5-inch square. starting 1/4 of an inch from the edge and sewing that seam. And just like we did with the top, I'm going to go the opposite seam and sew that one down. And then I'll do the third side. And then on the fourth side, we want to make sure that we leave an opening so that we can turn this right side out. So I will start from the edge and sew in just a little bit and do some back stitching at the very beginning and the end to lock that into place. Make sure to leave your opening big enough that you can turn your pincushion right side out. I know my hand is in the way. I'm sorry. So I just went in about 1.5 inches, maybe. And now I'm skipping down to the other side, taking some stitches and some back stitches, and now I'll sew all the way to the end. So there's our little opening. This is what it's going to look like. And now we can start turning it right side out. You can take your little finger and poke out those corners. And you'll see, even though it felt really awkward to sew the corners, they turn out so pretty. So you can fill your pincushions with all kinds of stuff. Now y'all, I have used up almost a good portion of Harlan's walnut shells making these videos. I've used rice, I've used polyfill, and scraps of batting. I am a t-shirt quilter, and I always have lots and lots of t-shirt offcuts from my t-shirt quilts, and I save those in a basket. I'm just gonna cut a bunch of strips from that for this pincushion, and you'd be surprised with this size pincushion how many of the scraps it takes to fill this one. So I'm just gonna start stuffing some t-shirt scraps right into this opening. And that's gonna take a minute. Once I have it pretty much stuffed, I'm gonna just take some polyfill because that's nice and cushiony and go right into those corners to give them a nice little shape. And when you're happy with the shape of your pincushion, we can begin hand sewing the opening shut. I like to use a thread that's going to kind of blend into my fabrics, just in case you see my little stitches. Here's my opening, and we're just going to hand sew that shut. I try to take tiny, tiny little stitches if I can, just so that they're not that noticeable. And when you get to the end, you'll just make yourself a little knot. And I like to bury the thread tail into the pincushion. And you might have to do a little squishy, squishy, squishy to make the shape nice and pretty. So there we go. Our cubed pincushion, our little sewing caddy with pockets. I think this would be adorable with pockets all the way around. There's lots of different ways you can customize this. I think this is super adorable. You could do this in so many different sizes, following the same methods I've used in today's tutorial. How awesome is that? Look, I even made another one. They're so pretty. They're so much fun to make. With each one of these videos, I say, wow, this is my favorite one, until I make the next one and I'm like, wow, this is my favorite one. So I hope that this has inspired you to make some pin cushions today. Until I see you next time, have fun creating. Bye, everybody.